So this first module is essentially a 30,000 feet overview. As much as I've criticized the online content as being too loosey-goosey and too much at a high level, it's to some degree this is necessary here, although my particular view is one coming from a finance background. So this course is aimed at people who study finance or interested in finance, and to a large degree, blockchain technologies, native applications are all in finance. So what I want to do is I want you to understand how value transfers work today in today's market. I will give you a demo of blockchain transfers based on an excellent online tool developed by Anna's Hogwarts. Oh God, hope I got his name right. Um, I will have a discussion about how we think how we can think about blockchains as a database and what that implies about how we should think about the usage of blockchains. We talk about workflow, demo of workflow, and we identify the areas that we need to drill down on. All right. Before we go into all of this, I just want to give you my brief picture of the background that we have. Now, if you think about what happens to the financial industry these days, there's essentially, in my view, two major movements. Number one, there is the automation of banking and banking services. It goes along with banks now finally starting to collect data more systematically. And as they collect data systematically, they start to build better databases, they have more comprehensive databases, and they start linking their databases. They often use cloud computing to link the data and use the power of cloud computing to scale their computations. There is a recent article by Goldman Sachs where they essentially said they are indifferent between the security offered by Amazon's web services, so AWS, and their own. Now, that's a very strong statement because normally banks pride themselves with the high level of security that they afford their customers. And if a big powerhouse like Goldman Sachs makes statements of that to that end, that essentially tells us that cloud computing is a viable option, and people in financial industry certainly are using it. Now, with better data and more data, what we'll see is people and banks in particular can use predictive analytics much better than they ever used to be. The big background there is that people apply machine learnings all over the place in order to find predictions about consumer behavior, stock price behavior, and so on and so forth. And then if you take those insights and those behaviors and you feed it back, you can get again more data, and thereby you can process automation and you can process the basic functions of banks. So take, for instance, credit analysts, people who go through a file and make a credit decision. That's probably going to be a thing of the past very soon. Now, in addition to automation, what we also see is a big move to disintermediation. Consumers have more information than ever before. They don't need necessarily a financial advisor. There are websites that provide comprehensive overviews. There's data providers to provide information. So in many cases, the people in the financial industry that played major roles in the processing of information and dissemination of information are no longer needed. It comes also, of course, with the digitization of services. Now, one key component of disintermediation is digitized infrastructure, where instead of having files move around, information move around between selected parties, you have an entire infrastructure which allows many people to access it simultaneously. And blockchain technology falls into that area. So in other words, to make a long story short, in my view, blockchain technology, what it really is at its core is it's an infrastructure that will drive disintermediation.